in my life up to this point, I have realized, and I've tried to start, 10, 12 businesses throughout the years. The only ones that have been successful were the ones where I was, coaching a baseball team, the cybersecurity world, because I was a cyber attack victim. So I want to serve those leaders to make sure they don't go through what I went through. Those are the only things really that have been able to be successful for me, because my soul and a deeper part of me was linked to it. And I learned so many lessons that I'm able to package up and deliver to people. And it's that experience. People can feel when you haven't gone through an experience and you're trying to, get them along that path. They can feel the unauthenticity that comes along with that. And I think a lot of people battle with that. They want to start a business, they want to get into a job because of the money, because of material aspects, and it's not where life's going to naturally align for you.
Welcome to the Outlier Mindset podcast, your guide for living a life by design. Here, we explore the journey of becoming an outlier, finding your purpose, mastering your mindset, optimizing your health, achieving financial freedom, and building a life centered around your passions. So tune in, transform, and thrive. Welcome to the Outlier Mindset. Let the journey begin. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Outlier Mindset podcast. I'm your host, Rodman Schley, and today our guest has a fascinating background and a wealth of knowledge. Greg Tomchick is a former professional baseball player turned cybersecurity coach who has transitioned from the baseball diamond to becoming a prominent figure in the cybersecurity industry, serving over 250 companies. Now the CEO of Valor Cybersecurity and host of the Connected Mindset Live Show, he lends his expertise to ABC, Fox News, and Inc. magazine, helping guiding individuals, executives, and brands in protecting their most valued assets in life and in business. Greg, welcome to the show.
Rodman, thanks so much for having me. Love what you're doing here, and looking forward to diving in.
Yeah, you've got so much to offer. You and I had a chance to talk offline quite a bit to get an idea of what's important to you and what you're really passionate about in life. And I feel like, people who live passionate lives have so much to give and take that passion and put it into other people and help facilitate an environment where we're all growing and finding that greatness. And I'm really excited about our conversation today. I know one of the things that I'd really like to talk to you about today is connectivity, being connected, and what we need to start doing to reconnect, because I feel like in society, there's so many people who are disconnected. I don't know if that came from COVID. I don't know if it came from technology. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe all these factors are coming into play, but I just feel like we're just not connecting anymore like we used to on a very personal basis.
Absolutely. Yeah, Rodman, I like to say we're more connected than ever, but less connected than ever before, for many reasons behind that. Technology, the comfort that we have in putting ourselves into a corner, and that's impacted the way we think about connection. These tools that we have at our fingertips, social media, artificial intelligence, to have conversations with computers, has made it where we are not valuing the community aspects that we valued for generations. And we need a lot more of that. That's why, I speak about this both at a business and a personal level today, is about reconnecting companies, give them the ability to build trust with each other. These tools don't build trust. People can put fake profiles out, things of that nature. And no matter where technology goes, the human element is always going to be at the center of what makes us human and what makes us grounded to the earth. And, that community connection is so important. And I'm looking forward to shining some light on those topics here with you today.
Now, I see a lot of people, especially in my kids, and I don't want to just put this on my kids, because I'm guilty of these same things, where we're on this phone society now where everything is, we're flipping up, we're scrolling, we're going through things, we're texting, but we're not really getting on that phone to have that human conversation, or we're not getting in groups of people or rooms of people to have those same connections that we used to have. And what kind of impact do you think that's having on businesses and people just in their personal lives?
Yeah, an immense impact. We see it as enormous from a systematic standpoint. It's mental health, It's the ability to connect when the time is right. You have to exercise this just like a muscle. As an athlete, we knew we needed to exercise the muscle we wanted to use in the game. So when the time came, we were under the lights, and we needed to perform. You want to be able to do that in front of people. Whether you're going to networking events have the least amount of people than ever before, because people feel like they're networking when they're online. They are, but it's very surface level. For somebody like myself, I love conversations that have depth in them, that are talking about what people are going through, what communities are encountering from a systematic standpoint, and how we can start to improve on some of those and be better connected as individual to individual. I always say my biggest breakthroughs come from one-on-one conversations like this. And if I don't put myself out there, if I don't trust my ability to deliver when I'm in front of somebody and be able to bring them value, then I'm not going to be able to connect with them. And that can cause me to put myself into a corner and just say, I'm going to stay at home and, do what I've always done, which doesn't help either the other person or myself.
Yeah, I kind of feel too like, you had the blessing of being able to go out and you played professional sports in terms of baseball. You played baseball. I know you mentioned being under the lights and doing all that, but that had to be a very, very socially interactive type thing to be doing in life, just because you're part of a team, you're part of meetings. It's not something that you could just do online. It was actually getting out there and playing ball with people that you love to be around and that you love to socialize with and gather with. I mean, what about that journey? Was that a journey for you that had any kind of impacts to understand the social aspects of what we need?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was a military-born kid. Both my parents were Navy, so we got to travel around to a lot of different communities across the United States, different military bases, interact with different cultures. And what I realized is a lot of people made connections in the outdoors. There were some indoor sports, basketball, volleyball, things of that nature that, people wanted me to go into. But I really felt the difference in those sports that were outdoors and where people were moving around and interacting with different folks. Eventually that became baseball. But my baseball journey was not always, the best player on the team. I really had to evolve at each level that I went up, T-ball. They have, kind of rec league, and then you get into travel ball. And then you start to take it serious, where you have scouts watching you, evaluating every move you make, every conversation you have, body language. Are you thanking your coach after the game? They looked at everything. And what I realized is that you had to be the full package for them to want to give you a chance. And for a long time, I battled with trusting myself as the player that I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to, follow in footsteps like Justin Verlander and other great pitchers, because I was a pitcher in baseball. But I realized through that military connection that if I wanted to be a leader on my team, if I wanted to lead myself to the highest levels of sports, I needed to start to trust myself and have standards that I operated within, that not necessarily aligned with the scouts' expectations, but aligned with what I thought and what I knew was going to be a good player and a good person, which would scale me well beyond sports. And once I started to trust myself, those scouts started to trust me. My parents started to trust that I was the player and becoming the player that I wanted to be. My teammates started to trust me. And I've been able to take that lesson into everything I do now in business, and in community, is helping other people build the trust that they need, in order to kind of go out into the community and be able to do all the great things they want to do, money meaning, self-mastery wise. And all of that, aligns with the outlier mindset. That's what allowed me to become an outlier in my community, was initially that point of, what do I need to do to trust Greg more? And, that attracted the right people to me, who ended up trusting me enough to give me the opportunity at the next level to play in Major League Baseball.
You led with you. You led with being true to who you were, being true to yourself, making sure that you had a good grasp on that. And you're right, that is what attracts people to you. Because if you've got that genuine experience, people can see right through that. If you're not living your purpose, if you're not genuine, if you're not living true to who you are, people can glare straight through you and never realize. They're not going to come to you. They're not going to be attracted to you, because that's not what they're looking for either. I think people are looking for those genuine connections from genuine people.
Absolutely. That's at the core. That's something I always looked for as an individual. And I said, I wasn't getting that at certain points in my, personal or professional journey. And what I finally realized, as I was going through that hard internal work, is I have to become that person first that's going to attract the person that I want to be around. And sometimes that's hard to wrap our mind around because we want other people to show us the way. We want mentors to say, this is who you need to become. We want leaders to say, we see you doing this. Here's a way you can be better. But that's you being better for them, not for yourself, not for the people that you want to serve. So I think that's a fundamental activity when it comes to connection is really starting there. And then everything, the world is your oyster from there to be able to become in any areas of the outlier mindset what you want to be. But you have to set the standard yourself and not just go along with the expectations of others in those critical areas of your life.
Yeah, I've heard people talk. Matter of fact, I was just at a leadership conference last week, I'd say. And one of the things that kept coming up in this conference was how life is rigged in our favor. It's rigged in all of our favors. But we don't see that a lot of the time. We don't get up with it. We're not putting that front of mind. We're not realizing that if we get a little problem, we make it into big problems. It's just kind of how we function. But you and I were talking offline. For us, a lot of our worst days are better than so many people's best days. And it's so important that we have that right mindset. And when we're going out and we're leading and we want to be an outlier and we're living that purpose-driven life, to make sure that we're sitting in that position where we understand, hey, life is rigged in our favor. And yes, we do have so many blessings to get up. And those are the things, too, that are going to attract people in. If you're living a life of abundance, if you're living a life where your mindset is right, where you're putting into the world, you're going to bring in incredible people on your journey.
Absolutely, Rodman. I think perspective is a trait. It's a character trait that a lot of us need to develop. A lot of people talk about perspective, the way you look at the world, the way you translate everything coming into you. But that starts as a way of shaping how you want the world to be better around you, how you want to leave it better off than you found it. And then the things you attract, you filter them in and out based off of that. So if you don't have that filter, then everything, online, all your different sources that you're digesting, food, information, things you put in your body, otherwise, that's going to be something that it's just going to flood you. You're not going to be able to filter things out to be able to live that, authentic life that a lot of us talk about. And ultimately that's going to, tire you out to a point where, you're going to feel like you're depressed. You're not going to be able to perform and so on and so forth that we see so much in today's world.
You were talking a little bit earlier too about, these networking groups, and I see it with associations and organizations and a lot of these different groups that used to thrive on people getting in rooms together. They used to be so big. I mean, the number of people that craved getting in that room together for networking, for learning, for gaining friendships, to meet peers, to do so many different things. Those numbers dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. They continue to dwindle, right? Do you think there's going to be a shift back to that? Because I feel like, for so long, so many people were connected. Now we've all kind of got into our caves. We've come out of COVID. We're still in a whole different culture than we used to be in even 5-6 years ago. Do you think that's going to swing back around for us?
I absolutely do. I'm in my daily activities, I'm trying to be a forcing function to make that happen in many ways through my show and through the community that I'm building. I think at the core of it is people have gotten less vulnerable because they feel judged, because of how online media outlets and things have shaped what good looks like. I call it a thick description. Things aren't good or bad. There are really multiple levels of anything that we do, and vulnerability is at the core of that direct and authentic connection. If we're not able to be vulnerable, share what we're going through, nobody's going to feel connected to us. So if you're at a networking event and you go up, you just talk about your business, not really why you're in business, what the impact you're making is, what it means to you. It's hard for people to connect, and I think that's what a lot of people are doing in community today is is they're looking for somebody to deliver on a need they feel they have. I need more money, or I need more health and wellness, or I need more better relationships in my life. And we're looking for people to bring those improvements to our lives without actually having transparency of that need and saying, I'm at this networking event because I'm looking to grow my business to, its next stage. Here's what that next stage is. Here's why I'm looking to get there. And if we're able to ask those questions, a lot of people would be surprised how well people are able to connect to you and then deliver and help you get to that end goal. That was something that I discovered as I was going through that trust building exercise. I would go to leadership of, a major league team and say, where do you see me going? Here's where my skill set is taking me. Does that align with where the organization's going? Does that align with where this community is headed, where the game's headed? And when you ask those hard questions and you're able to be vulnerable, it's amazing what happens, both for yourself, but also for others, because they're learning from your journey as well. And I think that's what people used to do when they would sit around a campfire, is they'd share those authentic lessons that people were going through, whether it was hunting, whether it was their relationship. And that was able to get them to an area of connection that made it a win-win and made them both thrive. And I think when we get out of conversations like that, we all feel more alive. And then we go make a greater impact on those around us.
Yeah, that's so profound, even to think about how things used to be. And now when you talk about social media, you talk about anything you do, we only show people what we want them to see. And unfortunately, what we have in social media, you go look at everybody's, well, go look at my wall. It's the same thing. Like, I'm not showing enough of the junk. I'm not showing enough of the bad things that are happening. I'm not showing the full story. And you know what? We would all benefit from each of our full stories if we were brave enough, courageous enough to make sure that we're putting it into the world, because it's easy to look at somebody and go, oh, well, of course they're doing well. They're perfect. Look how perfect they are. But it's that person who comes and shows, hey, it's not all perfect. Here's the junk that's happening behind the scenes that I'm having to deal with all the time, or here's where I tripped and fell, or here's where I failed, or here's where I learned. If we could start getting back to those areas where we are feeding people full stories like they did around that campfire, where they sat there and left and said, okay, now I can go be better and I'm not alone. So yeah, I'm looking at a guy who's successful all the time on Instagram, but he's not successful all the time, but we think he is. But when we understand that, you know what, he's got the same struggles, he's got the same problems, he's got the same questions as I do, then all of a sudden we get that connection and that authenticity that really serves everybody well.
It absolutely does. And I think back to all the experiments I've run. I think about things as experiments when we're going out and speaking with people in public or interacting with our community, whether it's online or in person, and just trying different things out. I had to try different things out, different questions to coaches, different questions to people on my team, whether it's business or in sports, and see what their reaction was to it. And you look at folks, we both have an admiration for Lewis Howes and all the great things he's doing at Greatness Media. Stephen Bartlett with the Diary of a CEO. And if you think about where those people started, these people who are excelling in their unique vertical, a lot of the initial conversation was, my life was broken. I was going through the worst possible situation that I could ever think of. I couldn't make this stuff up. It's the authentic me, and here's how I'm climbing out with it in collaboration with a community. So it's amazing, and I encourage everybody listening in, run this type of experiment. If you have the wherewithal to do it, you'll see at any event, the person that's talking at these authentic levels is like a magnet to people. It brings all of these people to this one person or these couple people that are talking about the hard times. Not that you have to be negative. It's really just saying, I live both the good and the bad, and I share it because I know it's going to be productive and it's going to be something that benefits everybody involved. And talking about it, it also helps that individual as well. So it's a lopsided win-win, but at the end of the day, it really means a lot when people are not just sharing all of the good things, because in essence, as individuals, we're kind of connected to loss, to the ability to subtract things from our lives. It becomes so hard to get rid of certain things. So when you hear about people subtracting things that did not serve, the standards they've set internally, it's really empowering. It shows that anything is possible. And that's, what we all want at the end of the day. It's something that I think gets us all out of bed, is that that fact that at the essence, anything is possible when we're able to kind of stretch ourselves a little bit and talk about those hard times that we went through, because you often get a better feedback than just talking about all the good things that are going on.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's one of those things where, people, when they're going through a process and they're living life, and it's tough for men more than women. Women are great, and sometimes even women struggle with this too, but men are kind of trained and raised to be these macho people who, even if things are going wrong, you're tough, you don't show it, you keep it on the inside, you puff out your chest and you fight through it, and and I feel like a lot of men struggle with that authenticity because of that. They feel like, oh, I can't show that, or this is going to make me look weak, or this is going to make me look not smart, or this is going to make me look like I'm failing. And then they reject it, but they're really rejecting themselves. They're really rejecting an opportunity to do something that I really want you to say, and that's you are best set up to serve the person that you once were, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so for us to be able to go in, and if you can break down those walls, find that authenticity, and then serve, take those obstacles that you went through, take those pains and those troubles, and take everything that you had gone through in life, and then how can you help that next person by being authentic? That's when I feel like you're going to get that genuine connection between you and other people. And that's magical.
To me, it's natural alignment, as opposed to really going against the grain of, the person you're uniquely qualified to serve, whether it's yourself 5, 10 years ago. It's natural alignment where the person on the other end is actively going through the process of making these critical decisions. And when you can give them a light that says, here's the decision that I made, here's potentially how I would improve that decision, it gives them a road of benefiting from the lessons you've learned. And to me, at its core, that's leaving the world better than you found it. All of us want to leave what some people call legacy, but it's really leaving the world a little bit better than you found it in all capacities. Rooms that you walk in, houses that you buy and sell, businesses that you go in and work for. All of us want to leave the world better off and leave something behind. And I think that's what it is at its core. And a lot of that, as I mentioned, starts with that internal trust, as you mentioned. And in my life up to this point, I have realized, and I've tried to start, 10, 12 businesses throughout the years. The only ones that have been successful were the ones where I was, coaching a baseball team, the cybersecurity world, because I was a cyber attack victim. So I want to serve those leaders to make sure they don't go through what I went through, to learn the lessons before the hard times hit them. Those are the only things really that have been able to be successful for me, because my soul and a deeper part of me was linked to it. And I learned so many lessons that I'm able to package up and deliver to people. And it's that experience. People can feel when you haven't gone through an experience and you're trying to, get them along that path. They can feel the unauthenticity that comes along with that. And I think a lot of people battle with that. They want to start a business. They want to get into a job because of the money, because of material aspects. And it's not where life's going to naturally align for you. And it's going to be harder than ever before. And I think we need to almost think about, how can we work smarter? Obviously, we have to work hard to accomplish things. We have to make the right connections. But when you can find that natural alignment, it's kind of serendipitous how things kind of progress and roll out, and the impact you're able to realize you make is what makes life, all the more worth it. And like you said earlier, it makes you feel like you wake up each day and you have that golden ticket. You have that, life is rigged in your favor. And I think we all want that, but getting there is the hard part.
Sometimes we can aimlessly drift through our life, not really sure how to break the patterns and live the life that you've always dreamed of. I get it. I have been there, so caught up in chasing opportunities until I found myself in a life that felt foreign to me. It took me years to unwind the messy web to get back to what I've been put on this planet to do. And let me tell you this, purpose doesn't have to feel out of arm's reach. And I've designed a plan for you to do a little bit each day over the next 30 days in a challenge that I call the Outlier 30. It's specifically designed to help you find or create more clarity around your purpose. So if you're feeling lost and you want to finally turn things around and live that life that you were destined to create, sign up right now. It's free. You have absolutely nothing to lose and the whole world to gain.
Visit gorodman.com/outlier30 today.
Yeah, you're speaking my love language here right now, Greg. I mean, in terms of talking through, what we do, what I teach and what I tell people all the time, if you're going to start that company, it's got to be purpose-driven. It's got to be from the heart, because you could start 20 companies tomorrow, but I guarantee you, like you, the ones that are going to be successful are the ones that are meaningful to you, the ones that mean something to you, the ones that are in your heart and that you want to get up and you want to work relentlessly on, because it's a lot of work. And that was my biggest problem for a while. I had 13 companies going at one time. It was this rich dad, poor dad philosophy of, okay, I'm just going to open companies. I'm going to put good people into place and life's going to be good. But there were only one or two of those that really meant anything to me, that were really like, I was putting profits before purpose. I was putting profits before passion. And unfortunately, they didn't do poorly, but they didn't do as good as they could have if I would have aligned myself with those things that were heartfelt, that were coming from a place of purpose and passion. And so there is a big, big difference. And I'll tell this to every entrepreneur out there. If you're thinking about doing something, if you want to go into business, I get it. I get profits. I understand you want the profits. I want the profits. But if you understand that if you align with that purpose, those profits are going to come. They are going to come because you're going to get up every single day and you're going to love what you're doing and you're going to make sure that that doesn't fail. So I talk all the time about that to entrepreneurs, because so many people get caught up in the money. Entrepreneurs love money. And right, no money, no mission. I get it. No money, no mission. But you can have both. Get the purpose in place, the income will come, and then you'll have both money and mission.
Absolutely. I like to look at it as oxygen. You have to use the passion as oxygen as you're building, the money that you need, the capital, the social capital around that idea that you want to bring to the world. I think that's critically important. And then money becomes the oxygen that keeps the company flowing. But at the end of the day, for one of the things I talk about with a lot of the business owners that I work with on a cybersecurity capacity, because I love the mindset of running a business, I love the building process of these companies, is if the company goes away, if the people go away, what's left at the end of the day? If all the money drains, the brand is gone, the technology tools are all gone, what's left for that business owner at the end of the day, or the people that they employed? How'd you make those people feel? What trust did you build with the people that you interacted with? What type of reputation did you build? And that's what scales any business owner, any entrepreneur, any leader, into a great life of legacy, is, kind of thinking about things from that perspective lens, but boiling things down to, I think we stack on, marketing, we stack on branding, we stack on, investors and capital people who are infusing capital into our business. But at the end of the day, we need to still focus on, that core of a business, which is people, which is meaning, which is impact, and ultimately, the trust that they're able to build in the market. Because even if that company goes to the wayside, people say Rodman was the guy who made me feel this way, and I want to see what he's doing now, what he's up to, and I want to find a way to work with him. And that's how business takes place in the world that I'm involved in, and the way that I like to do business, based off of that foundational structure of trust and reputation.
Yeah, I feel blessed actually to have a lot of the relationships through those companies that I've had and through those businesses and such. I mean, it's one of those things where I've had so many valuable relationships that, even you think about, when I built this house. So I GC'd my own house and I had a crew, and the crew would come in and they'd be here with me daily, and we formed these relationships. I love these guys. I love this crew. They're the guys who still, they're on building houses and doing their own thing. But man, I'll have them over for a barbecue, or we'll sit down. you're gonna get back. You're gonna get fed as much as you feed. So when you're putting into people and you're feeding people's souls and you're lifting people up and helping them be great, those people are going to be right there behind you every step of the way, doing what they can to support you and help to make you great too. That's the power of really good relationships.
I'm a firm believer of that. I think we're all a compilation of our relationships and the standards we've set to get to those relationships. And I think, a lot of people in your audience are probably going through that process of finding ways to build better relationships, finding ways to be more authentic with themselves. They bring that out to the world, and it's interesting how the right people get attracted to you. So I think that's so critical, business and personal life. And when we're down, that brings us up. And when other people are down, we bring them up. And it's that, unification of what makes people at the end of the day. And ultimately, we need more of that connection. That's what's going to keep us alive, keep the world thriving, and keep each of us able to satisfy, fulfill our purpose on this earth, and to be able to bring our superpower to more people.
I'm sure too, Greg, there's a lot of people that are sitting out there listening right now going, yeah, that's me. Yeah, we got into COVID. I started working from home. I don't network anymore. I don't get into the workplace anymore. I'm just kind of a captive in my own home at times, because we got into that mindset for a while. We got trained to stay away from people. We got trained not to go out. We got trained not to go to those networking events. But that person's sitting there right now thinking, yeah, that's me. What do they need to do to start changing that up, to kind of get back into the process or the systems or the habits of getting with people again?
Yeah, for me, I like, steps that people can take. I like to, in my own life, have a little bit of a roadmap and a system I can function off of. I always think about it as first, inventory where your life is at. Start to subtract things. A lot of us need to subtract more than we need to add. So I think, starting with an inventory, how has my life changed since before COVID? Maybe I'm at home more. Maybe, my kids are at home as well. What is the change in the situation? And inventory the activities that you go through on a daily basis. This is something I do, probably monthly, sometimes when my life is going through chaos, even more frequently, as I inventory what I'm doing throughout the day. And it gives me a clear perspective on what I need to subtract or try to subtract. That's one of the hardest things we do in life, is subtract things that are not serving us. We know they're not serving us, but we continue to do them. So, start subtracting some things. I always say subtract a thing and consider adding a thing in the place of that. So you're not necessarily just, sitting and waiting during that time. You're adding it with something of where you want to see yourself, in the future. Most of the time, our body and our mind tell us that this is not congruent with the person that we want to be, but we stuff that feeling down. And that's kind of that, depression aspect, is we're depressing the things we know are congruent with us or are incongruent, but at the same time, we're still doing them. So I think a lot of it comes down to that initial inventory. I say everybody should start there. Start to subtract some things. Start to kind of, become more lean. A lot of people talk about lean organizations or lean companies, but take that into your life and start to operate your life at a leaner, more purposeful type activity life. And that's going to allow you to think about things that you can add into your life. Maybe it's a walk every day. It doesn't have to be strenuous exercise. It could just be, listening to a podcast like this, finding ways that fill your cup up and allow it to overflow. I always say that, if our cup is empty, we can't serve others. We can only serve them when our cup is overflowing. And I think that's an important concept for people to grasp, is if you're draining yourself with activities like, sitting down 11 hours out of the day, or, always stressing about, if something wrong is going to go haywire with your kids, those activities put you in a position to feel like you're constantly adding bad things into your routine. So it's inventory, subtract, and then add. Most people are inventory add, and they would just want to add all these routines that are on social media that the latest influencers are talking about. And eventually you have a life that is not congruent with the life you're supposed to be living.
It's hard to let go of things at times. I mean, when you're looking and doing that inventory, there are definitely those things that aren't serving you. But unless you consciously sit down and consciously do that inventory, a lot of times those are just going to keep repeating and repeating and repeating. And sometimes you need a life shakeup. Sometimes things need to change drastically for you to actually sit down. But that's not when you want to do it. It's always good, I feel. And I don't know how often you do your inventory, but I'm always doing an inventory. And I'm always looking at those things. This does not serve me anymore, or this is not meant for me, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not like you're rejecting anything. It's you're just putting things in your life that belong there and getting rid of the things that don't. And I think that's a process that if more people did often, and maybe it's a year process, maybe it's a 6-month process for you, I don't know, but it's a really good practice to be doing.
It absolutely is. All of us do not have to hit rock bottom. I like to mention that from a cybersecurity perspective, because at one time I hit that rock bottom. And then in other areas when I was getting out of baseball with, using alcohol or using things to distract myself from where I really wanted to be because it was a hard path. And all of us do not have to hit rock bottom, but we have to have some type of wake up call. And, I want to help, and I know you want to do the same, is help more people be able to have that shock, the electric, pulse throughout the body before they hit the bad situation of hurting others or hurting themselves in some way. And there are conscious ways to do it, like that continual inventory that can, as you inventory things, you start to get shocked, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I was doing this for 6 hours a day. Or, I didn't know that I was so focused on my financial life that I now don't have any relationships, or I don't have, my health and wellness. So doing that inventory is something that, I encourage everybody to do. And then as you start to subtract things, your soul, your body, your conscious starts to become more free to explore other avenues that would better serve you. And I think that's just a critical step in anyone's self-mastery and personal development.
There are things that people will hold on to so tightly. They think that they have to have it. It's got to be in their life. It's this. But the second they let go of it too, they open up a whole new world. Their eyes are open to such different aspects that they didn't even think about because they're holding on so tightly to maybe that one thing that didn't belong. And they're scared. I mean, sometimes people are scared to let it go. What if I let this go? And how is that going to feel? Am I going to hurt? Or, like we talked a little bit about your baseball career. And, people will hit a top of a career, get to the pinnacle, and then it leaves them. Then it's no longer meant for them. And then what? And then all of a sudden your whole identity starts to crumble and everything starts to look different because you are not aligned with who you have been for the last 10 years. And that's a tough thing too to get over, even though, like you would say now, looking at you and who you are and who you've evolved to be, I'm sure you look back at it and go, you know what? Yeah, that was a chapter of my life. I loved it. I hit a pinnacle, and now I'm striving for a new pinnacle.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have to continue to shift our perspective on where we're headed. Everything is going to come to an end, whether it's a conversation that we're having, a relationship, or, our life, or something we're going after to achieve. But at the end of the day, it's who you become as a part of that process. It's not necessarily what you get, it's who you become along that path that makes it worthwhile and makes it purposeful. I think that's so important for people to kind of shift their perspective on. Is it's not the destination, it's that journey that we go through to become the best, highest version of ourselves, which we all need to do. And ultimately, that's not an easy process. I want to make sure, I know we talk about it in a way because we've been able to see some of these lights. It's a very difficult process, but when you have people around you who have done it, and you have shows like the Outlier Mindset where you can periodically visit people that are going through this journey, people who have done the hard work, it gives you that beacon of light that all of us need at some point in the journey, so we don't have to hit that rock bottom. We can really start to implement some things in our lives that are really going to serve both us and the other people that we care about. And that to me is legacy, when you can have that perspective of how did I evolve and how did I help others evolve along with me through this journey, not necessarily what we accumulated from a material standpoint. And, that's something, once you shift that perspective, you start to get rid of a lot of the material things and you start to realize what's really important. And that's something I continually revisit in my daily life because we get emotionally attached to things. You mentioned this earlier where it was hard for Greg 6, 7 years ago to get rid of that identity of baseball player. And that's all I was. That's what I trained myself to be for, 15, 17 years. And when I had to change that identity, it was so painful to go through that. And nobody around me was going through that same shit. So there was no one to ask the question, what did you do? What should I not do? I kind of had to figure it out on my own. And it took me back to that place that I mentioned earlier about in baseball, starting to trust myself. I had to rebuild, trust with myself and become an expert in something where everybody said, you're just a baseball player. You can't be this new expert in this area. And it takes, a lot of people say confidence, a lot of people say trust. But ultimately, I was just very vulnerable about where I was headed, what I thought I needed to get there. And it's interesting how I was able to attract the people who were able to give me the lessons that got me to that next step. And I almost started to look at it as a video game where, every day I was just trying to level up one more time. But I did get caught in that accomplishment loop. We spoke about before the show, something I came across recently is all of us have already accomplished something that we said would make us happy. And I think that's such an important quote that all of us can kind of resonate with, because at one time we are where we are right now because we thought something would make us happy, and we've already achieved it. If you think about yourself today, that you're enough, that you've gotten to the point because you've purposely done it. You thought the person that you are today would make you happy, and why is it not making you happy? And I think that's such an important aspect for everybody to resonate with, because it gives you back that, I have somewhat control of where I'm headed. I really need to do the hard work in order to get myself to that fulfilled, happy state, which is really where your expectations for life are met. And a lot of times we get our expectations from the outside world. But at the end of the day, it's when our standards are being fulfilled out into the world. I look at expectations as those external, and the standards are the internal out that we uphold people to, we uphold ourselves to. And when that is being fulfilled and we're firm in those, to me, that's happiness, that's fulfillment. And, I, as an individual, as a community leader, as a business leader, I want to see more people do that. And that's what I try to, bring out into the world, whether it's a client, whether it's people within the team, or it's, audiences like yours who are up to great things and they want to accomplish great things, but there may just be one tweak that they need to make in order to get there, and want to help be a bridge to get them there.
Well, you talked a little bit about legacy in there too. And, legacy, when I'm gone, when I die, we're all going to die, right? Everything comes to an end, including us. We've got these short lives, we've got these journeys that we're on, but nobody's going to look at me and go, oh man, Rodman drove a great car. Oh man, he had the best house on the planet. Nobody's going to look at me or think about me in those terms. What they're going to remember are those things that you put into people, those things that you delivered for people, the times that you stepped up, the times that you encouraged, the times that you lifted up, all those things that you do to go and have a real impact in life. And that's why it's so important to align with your purpose. If you're living a purpose-driven life, you are going to be getting up and you are going to be serving people. You are going to be serving who you once were, because that's what life is about. It's not about this house. At the end of the day, all this is going to be wiped clean. Somebody's going to be living in my house. My car's probably going to be in a scrap pile somewhere, and somebody's going to have all my furniture. They'll probably be antiques at that time. Just like, think about the antiques you have in your home. Those at one time belonged to somebody who's not here. We don't know we don't know who they belong to, right? So when we're talking about physical, tangible things, they're really so irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of what you're doing, in the grand scheme of life. They're really all for nothing. But when I'm on that deathbed and I'm sitting there, I always tell people the one thing you don't want at the end of that journey is regret. You don't want to be sitting there looking at your family in the eyes with that regret of all those things that you didn't do, that you wanted to do, or all the garbage that we didn't clear out of our lives to make room for the things that belonged in our lives. I think it is so critical and so important to make sure that when we are there on that deathbed, that we're looking our family in the eyes and saying, if I wanted to try it, or if it was an idea, or if I was passionate, I tried it. Wasn't successful all the time, but I tried it. And I have no regrets. And then I can say, take that last breath, look at my kids for the last time, and go with no regret, knowing that I did my best on this journey.
Yeah, I love that, Rodman. I always think about regret is the things that we don't try. And you hit on it, right up nail on the head. It's not the things that we try and fail, because most of the time when we try and fail, we learn something and we almost forget about that trying. We just remember the lesson. But something that will continue to haunt all of us is if we know we need to do something, but we don't even give it that shot. We don't go have that conversation. We don't, go knock on that door. We don't ask the person, hey, what are you going through in your life right now? And how can I be a bridge to get you where you want to go? Those hard questions, those things that are more, a little bit uncomfortable, they're more in the depths of life. When we don't do those things, those are the things that haunt us over time. When we try it, and maybe it doesn't go our way all the time, and sometimes it's not going to go our way. But when we go ahead and do that, if you can look at, the end of your days and say, I don't have any regrets because everything that I knew I needed to do, I got done. That's to me, that's a job well done. And we all know what it feels like when you fulfill something you need to do. It lifts you up, but it also lifts others up along the way. And I think that's what, the core of community is all about. And I think that's the core of connection. And I want to see more people be connected and do it in a way that serves everybody. And along the way, they become the person that they want to be.
Yeah. I remember I had a gentleman in business who came up to me and he asked me, he said, Rodman, how is it that you are successful at everything that you do? And I looked at him and I said, you are out of your mind. I was like, I've been successful maybe at 20% of the things that I did. I've probably failed at 80, but you know what? Those 20% really aligned with who I was. That 20% we did really well. That 80% maybe didn't go as badly as they could have. It's one of those things. It's like none of us are perfect. None of us are going to come out of the gates and be successful at everything we do. It's an impossibility. But it's what we do with it, how we learn from it, how we grow from it, how we evolve and get better on our journey. That's when you can really capitalize and get good at what you do, but also be better for other people in life. Being able to give them those lessons that you learned from that 80% of the time that you fell, from that 80% of the time that you fail. It comes back to your authenticity, right? And if you are not being authentic, if you're not giving people that, you're really doing a disservice to people by not showing them the entire story. You're not helping them by just showing them the success. If you really want to help people, go deeper and show them the other side of the equation. Show them where you clipped your toe on that hurdle.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And that to me is legacy. It's sharing, the bad and the good. One of the ways, one of my core values when I think about, generational legacy or generational wealth, and I saw this from my grandparents and their grandparents, is the lessons and information that they were able to convey. In my life, when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, how many lessons can I learn today? And I have to put myself in a lot of uncomfortable positions in order to bring that to fruition. And then what I do every weekend is I sit down and I write a letter to both of my kids, and I talk about all the bad things that may have happened to me that week, all the good things, all the things that they did that made me really happy and really lifted me up as I was going through different phases of my business or my life or my relationships. And to me, that's going to all accumulate, whether they put it in a book or not, or they just read a letter, a day when I'm no longer here. For me, that's generational wealth. They're getting this wealth of information. Maybe I leave behind a lot of money, maybe I don't. But at the end of the day, hopefully that lifts them up to be able to feel the situations I put myself in. And that's going to give them, hopefully, the lessons that I learned the hard way. That's going to allow them to start, not from scratch, but for where their dad, was able to get to. And hopefully they carry that on. And that, I think, impacts, them, their kids' kids. And that to me is a huge part of generational wealth, where most people just look at it, as the dollars in the trust account or the check that they get when dad passes away. So that's something I've come across, the past year or so is what does generational wealth mean to me? And I think that's a big component of it, and something I try to fulfill, each day and then each week as I document it.
No, I love that. And that's going to tie in very nicely for the last question I'm going to have for you today, which is coming up. But before we get there, I did want to make sure people could connect with you. And I know that you're a wealth of knowledge, and our listeners would really benefit by having a relationship with you. Where can they go to find you?
Yeah, everybody can check out my website. It's Greg Tomchick, just like my name is spelled.com. That will take you to all the links to be able to connect with me on social. All my new books that I released go through there. You can check out the Connected Mindset Live. That's really my hub for everything. I'm on every social media platform except for TikTok, and that's just a little bit by design from a security perspective. But I love to connect with people. It's really at the core of what makes my soul feel alive. So definitely use me as a resource. And, I love shows like this, Rodman, and just want to recognize you for everything positive, everything productive, and everything educational that you're bridging for folks to connect to their higher self and for them to become the outlier in their community and their life, for the people they love and the people they want to serve.
I appreciate that. Life is too short not to be an outlier, not to be serving other people. So I really appreciate that. My last question for you, talking about what you give to your kids right now, but if you could go back in time and sit down with your younger self and give yourself the most valuable piece of information or advice that you have accumulated to where you're at right now, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, it's set your standards and uphold them in every situation. That's really the best way I know how to live today. It was a hard journey to get to the point where I could set my internal standards of what I felt was a great life lived and a great life of service. So I encourage everybody to set those standards, document them, and then uphold them and be able to know when those standards are being broken or not upheld by the people around you. And that's going to help you build a great life personally and professionally.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Rodman.